Most people think indoor plants don't bloom, that once you bring them inside, they stay green forever. No flowers, no color, just leaves. And if you want blooms, you need a garden, direct sunlight, or something complicated. That's what I believed too. Until one morning, I walked past my kitchen shelf and stopped. My peace lily had bloomed. No special care, no grow lights, barely any light at all. Just a clean white flower in a normal room. That moment changed everything. Because if one plant could do that, how many others was I ignoring? So I started testing. Different plants, different corners, real home conditions. And what I found was simple. Some plants don't just survive indoors, they actually bloom, again and again. And a few don't just bloom, they do it in a way most people wouldn't expect. Before we start, if you want more videos like this, real plants, real results, no guesswork, subscribe now and turn on the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Now let's start with the first plant. Plant number 1, peace lily, spathiphyllum. This is the plant that started everything for me, so it goes first. The morning that flower opened, that clean white spathe rising above the dark green leaves, I genuinely didn't expect it. The plant was on a kitchen shelf, about 4 feet from a north-facing window. No direct sun, no special soil. I did water it when I remembered, and yet there it was. What makes peace lily special is not just that it blooms indoors, it's that it blooms in low light, which almost no flowering plant does. The flower itself is architectural, elegant. It holds for weeks before slowly fading to green. One line of care: let the soil approach dryness between waterings and it'll reward you consistently. This plant changed my entire relationship with indoor flowering. It proved the thing was possible. But the next plant takes indoor blooming to a completely different visual level. Plant number 2, anthurium. The first time an anthurium bloom fully opened in my living room, I thought for a moment it looked artificial. That lacquered, waxy spathe in deep red, almost glossy, almost too perfect, doesn't look like something that grew in a pot on a shelf. It looks designed. The color is a specific shade that photographs beautifully, but looks even better in person, especially against a white wall where it has nothing to compete with. I had mine on a side table near a bright window, and it bloomed continuously for nearly 3 months, one spathe fading as the next one emerged. The longevity is what sets anthurium apart from most flowering plants. Most flowers last days. This one lasts weeks per bloom, with consistent production throughout the year. Bright indirect light and weekly watering is genuinely all it needs. The next plant brings a completely different kind of color, warm, cheerful, and almost endlessly producing. Plant number 3, Kalanchoe. Kalanchoe was my first experience with a plant that just keeps going. The clusters of small flowers, red, orange, coral, yellow, pink, opened over a period of about 6 weeks on my bedroom windowsill. When one cluster faded, I trimmed it back, gave the plant a few weeks of rest, and it came back again. What I noticed was the emotional warmth this plant added to the room. Green plants feel calm and natural. Kalanchoe in bloom feels cheerful, almost celebratory. The bedroom felt different in a way I had not anticipated from something sitting on a windowsill. It thrives on a little neglect between waterings. Let the soil dry completely before watering again. A sunny windowsill is its happiest place. But the next one is in a different league entirely, and it took my patience to finally earn the reward. Plant number 4, orchid, Phalaenopsis. I'll be completely honest, my first orchid didn't rebloom. I did everything wrong. I kept it in the same spot after the first flowers dropped. I watered on a schedule. I moved it once because I thought it needed more light. The plant sat there, healthy but flowerless, for almost 8 months. Then I stopped interfering. I moved it to a slightly cooler spot near the window. I let the watering become more irregular, and 11 months after I bought it, a new flower spike emerged from the base. When those pale pink blooms opened, it felt earned in a way that no other plant on this list had. Phalaenopsis orchids bloom for up to 4 months when they're ready. The key is temperature variation. Slightly cooler nights trigger the spike. One line of care: water weekly by soaking the roots, then let them dry completely. The next plant blooms with far less drama and far more frequently. Plant number 5, African violet, St. Paulia. African violet is the plant I recommend to anyone who wants flowers indoors without any of the waiting. Mine blooms almost continuously. I have it on a north-facing windowsill, genuinely not much light, and it pushes out those small, velvety purple and pink clusters month after month with minimal interruption. The only time it slows is in the depths of winter, and even then it usually has something showing. The first time I saw it in full bloom, a compact mound of dark green leaves completely covered in small purple flowers, I understood why people dedicate entire collections to African violets alone. Water from below by sitting the pot in a shallow dish of water. Keep water off the leaves. That's the main rule. Plant number 6, begonia. I did grown begonias outdoors before and never thought to bring them inside. That was a mistake I corrected 2 years ago, and I haven't looked back. The variety I tried first was a wax begonia, compact, glossy-leaved, covered in small pink flowers that lasted for months on my living room shelf. What surprised me was how little light it needed to maintain those blooms. A position about 5 feet from a bright window, and it just kept flowering. Rex begonias I grow for the leaves. Wax and cane begonias I grow for the flowers. Both indoors, both low fuss once settled. The blooms are delicate-looking but persistent. The plant has a quiet cottage garden charm that feels warm and lived in, exactly the energy I want in a living room. Water when the top inch of soil is dry. That's it. The next one looks almost tropical, and the bloom is unlike anything else on this list. Plant number 7, bromeliad. Bromeliad stopped me in my tracks at a garden center once, and I bought it without knowing anything about how it grew. The bloom, technically a modified leaf called a bract, rises from the center of the plant in vivid red, orange, or pink, and it lasts for months, not weeks, months. I had mine blooming continuously for nearly 5 months, which felt almost unreasonable for an indoor plant. I placed it on a high shelf in the living room where it caught warm afternoon light, and it became the visual anchor of the entire corner. People asked about it constantly. After the bloom fades, the mother plant produces offshoots, pups, that can be separated and grown on. One plant becomes several. Water into the central cup the leaves form and keep it topped up. Minimal soil watering needed. But the next plant has a bloom cycle completely unlike anything else, timed by the season itself. Plant number 8, Christmas cactus, Schlumbergia. Christmas cactus is the plant that taught me timing matters as much as care. It blooms in late autumn and winter, triggered by longer nights and slightly cooler temperatures. When I first understood this, I stopped treating it like a regular plant and started thinking of it like a calendar. It knows what season it is. It responds accordingly. The first winter bloom was a genuine surprise. Cascading pink and red tubular flowers drooping over the edges of the pot, dramatic and unexpected in a season when everything else outdoors was bare. I keep mine on a bedroom windowsill where the temperature drops slightly at night as winter approaches. That temperature shift is what triggers the bloom. Water moderately, reduce in late autumn to encourage flowering, and don't move it once buds form. The next plant blooms with zero seasonal dependency. It just keeps going regardless of time of year. Plant number 9, Crown of Thorns, Euphorbia millii. Crown of Thorns is the plant I describe as almost absurdly reliable. It bloomed the week I brought it home. It bloomed through summer. It bloomed through winter. It bloomed when I forgot to water it for 3 weeks. The small clusters of red or pink flowers simply kept appearing regardless of what I did or didn't do. I placed it on a sunny, south-facing windowsill where it gets as much direct light as my apartment offers, and it has repaid that placement consistently for over a year. What I noticed is that the architectural quality of the plant, those thick, thorned stems and vivid flower clusters, gives it a dramatic, sculptural presence that most flowering plants don't have. Water only when completely dry. This plant thrives on tough love. Now, the next one is slower to bloom, but when it does, the payoff is extraordinary. Plant number 10, Clivia. Clivia required the most patience of any plant on this list and delivered one of the most dramatic rewards. For almost 8 months, it was just a plant. Dark green, strap-like leaves, healthy but flowerless. I moved it once and later learned that was a mistake. Clivia needs to settle completely before it decides to bloom. Then, in early spring, a thick flower stalk pushed up from between the leaves. Over about 2 weeks, it slowly rose and then opened into a cluster of deep orange trumpet flowers, unlike anything I'd seen indoors. The color was extraordinary, vivid, warm, glowing. I've never moved it since. A cool, slightly dry winter rest period triggers the bloom spike. After that, consistent warmth and indirect light brings the flowers. One plant, one spectacular annual event, completely worth it. Let's stop here for a moment, because there's something most people never figure out about indoor flowers, even when they're growing the right plants. The problem isn't light, it isn't soil, and it isn't even watering. It's movement and interference. I had a Hoya plant for almost 7 months with no flowers. I watered it carefully, fertilized on schedule, even rotated it every few weeks so all sides got equal light. On paper, everything was correct. No flowers. Nothing. Then I went away for 3 weeks, asked someone else to water it once while I was gone. Came back, and there it was. The start of a flower cluster on a vine I had barely even noticed before. The plant wasn't struggling. It was waiting for me to stop interfering. That moment changed how I treat flowering plants completely, because flowers are not a response to effort. They are a response to stability, to a plant that feels settled in its environment, consistent light from a consistent direction, roots that have stopped adjusting, and a rhythm of watering it can actually predict. Every time you move a plant, it resets. It stops blooming and starts reorienting. Every time you repot unnecessarily, it switches focus to recovery instead of flowers. Every time you rotate it, it recalculates light instead of continuing its growth cycle. The biggest improvement I ever made wasn't something I added, it was what I stopped doing. I picked a spot and I left it alone. The same thing happened with watering. Overwatering doesn't just harm roots, it signals abundance, and abundance tells a plant it doesn't need to reproduce. But a plant that experiences a proper dry cycle, that slight rhythm of tension and relief, is far more likely to bloom. So the rule became simple. Stop intervening. Start observing. The flowers take care of the rest. Let's back to the plants. 11. Lipstick plant, Achenanthus. The name should tell you what to expect, and it delivers completely. Bright red tubular flowers emerge from dark, almost black-tipped buds along trailing vines. The moment those red flowers push out of the dark casings, it looks exactly like what the name promises. Vivid, dramatic, slightly surreal. I have mine in a hanging basket near a bright window, and when it's in full bloom, the trailing vines dotted with red flowers make the entire corner feel lush and tropical. It's one of those plants that generates comments every single time someone visits. What surprised me was how long the blooming period lasted, close to 2 months of continuous flowers with proper care. Bright indirect light and slightly dry conditions between waterings keeps it happy and blooming. The next one adds fragrance to the equation, something no other plant on this list quite matches. 12. Jasmine, indoor variety. Jasmine indoors was something I'd been told wasn't practical, too demanding, too fussy, needs outdoor conditions. I tried it anyway, and I'm glad I did. The flowers are small and white, almost insignificant visually, but the fragrance they release in the evening is extraordinary. I placed my jasmine on a shelf near the living room door, and on warm evenings, the scent would reach across the entire room. That sensory dimension, smell rather than just sight, changed the experience of being in that room in a way I had not anticipated from a plant. It blooms in late winter and spring, triggered by cool autumn temperatures. Keep it near a cool window in autumn, then bring it into warmth as winter progresses. One plant changed how a room smelled. That's a different kind of transformation entirely. The next one is more visual, bold cottage-style blooms that feel almost nostalgic. 13. Geranium, indoor variety, Pelargonium. Geranium indoors felt like a risk. I associated them entirely with outdoor window boxes in summer gardens, but a south-facing windowsill turned out to be everything they needed. The blooms are generous. Clusters of red, pink, or white flowers sitting above those distinctive scented leaves, flowering repeatedly through the warmer months. My windowsill had never looked more like an intentional garden. What I noticed most was the cheerfulness of the plant. There's something about a geranium in bloom that feels like a classic, grounded kind of beauty. Not dramatic, not architectural, just genuinely lovely in a way that ages well. Deadhead the spent flowers regularly, and it keeps producing. Full sun through a window is where this one belongs. But the next plant brings a completely different energy, softer, more delicate, but equally generous with its flowers. Impatiens was a complete surprise to me as an indoor plant. I had only ever seen them in outdoor borders and hanging baskets. Colorful, yes, but I had never considered bringing them inside. Then a friend had one flower on a dim windowsill in her flat, and I could not believe what I was seeing. Impatiens bloom prolifically, even in lower light conditions, far less than most flowering plants demand. The flowers are flat and simple, in shades of pink, red, white, and coral, and they just keep coming throughout the growing season without much encouragement. I tried one on a north-facing bedroom windowsill. Within 3 weeks, it was covered in soft pink flowers that lasted for months. Keep the soil consistently moist and give it what indirect light you have. It asks for very little. The next plant completely changed my feelings about winter. It blooms exactly when everything else stops. Plant number 15, Cyclamen. Cyclamen is the plant that makes winter feel different. In the middle of January, gray outside, heating on, everything feeling closed in and still, my cyclamen on the hallway table opened its first flowers. Swept back petals in deep pink, nodding above marbled green leaves that are almost as beautiful as the blooms themselves. There's something about a flowering plant in winter that feels more significant than one flowering in spring or summer. It's unexpected. It lifts something in the room that the season had been pressing down. Cyclamen prefers cool conditions. It actually dislikes central heating, which makes it perfect for hallways, cool bedrooms, or unheated rooms that still get light. Water from below and keep it cool. It rewards those two conditions reliably. The next one was completely new to me, and it turned out to be one of the most effortless bloomers on the entire list. Plant number 16, streptocarpus, Cape primrose. I had not heard of streptocarpus until a neighbor showed me hers, covered in delicate trumpet-shaped flowers in purple and white, sitting on a windowsill that got absolutely ordinary light. I bought one the following week. Streptocarpus blooms almost continuously from spring through autumn. The flowers are trumpet-shaped, softly colored, and they emerge on long, thin stems above rosettes of textured leaves. There's something quietly refined about the whole plant. Not dramatic, not showy, but consistently beautiful in the way that understated things often are. What surprised me most was the sheer generosity of the blooming. Weeks and weeks of flowers without any special intervention. Keep it in bright, indirect light and water moderately. One of the most rewarding plants I've discovered in recent years. Now the next one brings drama of a completely different kind. Color in the leaves as much as the flowers. Plant number 17, Oxalis, purple shamrock, Oxalis triangularis. Oxalis is the plant that makes people ask if it's real. The leaves are a deep, saturated purple, triangular, like folded origami in violet. And above those leaves, small, pale pink flowers appear on thin stems, creating a contrast that's genuinely striking. Dark, dramatic foliage and delicate, light flowers on the same plant. I placed mine on a desk next to a lamp, and in the evening, the combination of the purple leaves and pale flowers lit by warm lamplight looked almost theatrical. It became the most commented on plant in my home. The plant also has a quirk I found charming. The leaves fold closed at night and reopen in the morning, a living clock of sorts. Bright, indirect light and occasional watering. Virtually indestructible once established. But the next plant does something even more unexpected. It blooms on old wood in a way that looks almost magical. Plant number 18, Gloxinia, Syngia speciosa. Gloxinia was a discovery I made completely by accident. I bought one without knowing what it was, drawn purely by the flowers sitting on a shelf at the market. Large, velvety, trumpet-shaped blooms in deep purple with white edges. The texture of the petals looks almost like velvet fabric, rich and tactile in a way that photographs can't fully capture. The first time once opened fully in my living room, I stood looking at it for a long time. It blooms for about 2 months, then goes dormant. The leaves die back and the tuber rests. I almost threw mine away the first time this happened, thinking the plant had died. It had not. 6 weeks later, new growth emerged from the tuber. Bright, indirect light during growing season. Let it rest completely when it goes dormant. The next one is completely different. Patient, slow, and worth every week of waiting. Plant number 19, Hoya, wax plant, Hoya carnosa. Hoya taught me more about patience than any other plant I've grown. For months, many months, it was simply a trailing vine with thick, waxy leaves. Beautiful in its own way, but I had started to wonder if mine would ever actually flower. Then, one evening, I noticed a cluster forming on a short stem, a peduncle, that had been there for weeks without doing anything obvious. Over the following days, that cluster slowly developed into a perfect sphere of star-shaped flowers, pale pink with a deeper pink center, covered in tiny droplets of nectar. The fragrance was sweet and faint, noticeable in the room without being overwhelming. Never cut the peduncles after flowering. Hoya blooms again from the same stems year after year. And the last plant on this list is one most people have never heard of, but it might be the most beautiful surprise of all. Plant number 20, abutilon, indoor maple. Abutilon was the last plant I added to my collection and the one I talk about most. The flowers are pendant. They hang downward like small lanterns in orange, red, yellow, or peach, trembling slightly with any air movement. The leaves are maple-shaped, which gives the plant an unexpectedly elegant structure even when not in bloom. But in bloom, particularly a large, well-established plant covered in those hanging flowers, it looks extraordinary. I placed mine near a bright window in the living room, and it has bloomed almost continuously through spring and summer for 2 years running. What I noticed was that it changes the quality of light in a corner. Morning sun through those pendant orange flowers casts a warm amber glow into the space around it. It doesn't just add color, it changes the light. Bright indirect to direct light. Water generously in the growing season.
This is where most people get it wrong. They treat flowering plants like regular green plants. Same watering, same light, same routine, and then they wonder why nothing ever blooms. Flowering is not random, it's triggered, and there are only 3 things that matter. First, light consistency. Not more light, consistent light. Same spot, same direction, every day. Move it around, you reset the process. Second, dry cycles. If your soil is always wet, your plant has no reason to bloom. But when it dries out properly, the plant feels pressure, and pressure triggers flowers. Third, fertilizer. Too much feeding equals more leaves, not more flowers. If you want blooms, you don't push growth, you limit it. That's it. Not more care, just smarter timing. Now, I want to know, which one would you want blooming in your room? Is it the elegance of an orchid, the continuous color of a Kalanchoe, the winter magic of a Cyclamen? Drop it in the comments. I'm genuinely curious which ones resonate most with people. And here's what's coming next, because this is where things get even more interesting. Flowers are one kind of transformation, but some indoor plants don't just bloom, they grow fast. Visibly, dramatically fast. The kind of growth where you notice it week to week, where a corner goes from sparse to full in a matter of months. I'm putting that list together now, and a few of the plants on it will genuinely surprise you. Subscribe so you don't miss it. See you in the next one.